Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Sunday, 4th May 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. Australia. The Labour Party in Australia, under Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, was re-elected in the recent federal elections. Albanese highlighted the public's choice for unity, and Victorian Labour leader Jacinta Allan celebrated the party's strengthened position in the state. Treasurer Jim Chalmers stated the government's immediate priority is addressing global economic challenges, including the US-China trade war. A study connected emissions from major Australian resource companies such as BHP, Rio Tinto, Santos, Whitehaven Coal, and Woodside Energy to over $900 billion in climate-related damages across 3 decades. Additionally, Nadine Robinson, who claims to be Gina Rinehart's niece, has requested a DNA test to verify her link to the Lang Hancock family. United States. In the United States, a jury awarded $30 million to Cuban exiles in a lawsuit under the Helms-Burton Act, potentially compensating them for properties seized by Fidel Castro's regime in Cuba. The presidency of Donald Trump saw various controversial actions, including policies that angered voters of a U.S. ally, leading to the re-election of a left-leaning incumbent. Trump also faced criticism for sharing an AI-generated image portraying himself as the Pope. Moreover, numerous U.S. arts organizations had government grant offers rescinded following Trump's proposal to eliminate the National Endowment for the Arts, and over a dozen government health tracking programs were cut due to layoffs and budget cuts in the early stages of his administration. The ongoing US-China trade war remains a significant economic concern globally, including for Australia. BMW is ending contracts for 180 agency staff at its mini factory in Oxford due to global economic uncertainty and U.S. tariffs. Political commentary. Turning to commentary, Simon Birmingham described the Liberal Party model as broken, and Susan Ley indicated the coalition is reflecting on the election results with humility. Clive Palmer's trumpet, a Patriot's party, failed to secure any lower house seats despite extensive advertising spending. Nick Robinson cautioned that partisan media platforms offering unchallenged airtime to politicians pose a risk to democracy. Global economics. Finally, wealthy Chinese homebuyers are increasingly diverting their investment away from U.S. real estate, instead favoring markets in Thailand, Australia, Singapore, and the UK. China. President Xi Jinping will visit Russia from May 7-10 at President Vladimir Putin's invitation, coinciding with Victory Day events commemorating the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany, where they will discuss the no-limits partnership between the two countries. In southwestern China, 2 boats capsized in a sudden storm, leaving 20 missing out of approximately 70 people on board. More than 50 people have been rescued. A dispute has arisen between China and Japan over airspace violations near the Senkaku Islands, prompting a strong protest from Japan, while Beijing attributes the incident to extremist activists. China's manufacturing capabilities and advanced supply chains are expected to drive the development of humanoid robots. In Xinjiang, Chinese drones scattered silver iodide powder, increasing rainfall by over 4% in the dry region. Geng Yifeng, speaking at the Chinese Embassy's annual Open Day in Washington, stated that China did not initiate the tariff war and that tariffs are detrimental to all. US solar tariffs are predicted to stimulate an Asia transition boom, given that China manufactures 80% of the world's solar panels. These tariffs and ongoing tensions have reduced the presence of US buyers at China's Canton Fair, and exhibitors are avoiding showcasing their latest products developed with US clients due to these tariffs. Domestically, work on a key experimental reactor is expected to be completed within 2 years, potentially marking a significant advancement in clean energy technology. Craftbuster inspection teams have become important tools for maintaining discipline under Xi Jinping. While us graduates from top universities favor private sector jobs, national service has become an aspirational calling in China. Women in China often face a double curse of age and gender discrimination in the workplace. Chinese universities are reducing enrollments in arts and social science programs, prompting analysts to caution against excessive utilitarianism in education and to emphasize the evolving nature of these fields. Russia. President Vladimir Putin has invited Chinese President Xi Jinping for an official visit from May 7-10th, coinciding with Victory Day celebrations. The two leaders will discuss their countries' no-limits partnership. Australia. Despite ongoing diplomatic efforts, analysts suggest that Beijing and Canberra remain divided on major strategic issues, with no significant breakthroughs expected soon. Israel has pledged a multi-phased response after Yemen's Houthis launched a hypersonic ballistic missile. The missile struck near Israel's Ben Gurion International Airport, briefly halting flights and injuring at least 4 people near Tel Aviv Airport. Israel failed to intercept the missile, leading to the vow of retaliation. Despite weeks of US airstrikes, Houthi attacks continue. Israel is also moving a Patriot air defense system to Ukraine, exploring the possibility of Germany or Greece sending another. In Syria, Israel is accused of exploiting the Druze community in the Golan Heights to justify intervention due to the area's strategic importance. The Druze find themselves caught between hostile Islamists and Israeli bombings under the pretext of protecting them. Regarding Gaza, Israel called up tens of thousands of reservists for an offensive, blocking all aid deliveries and prompting UN warnings of a humanitarian disaster. Doctors report that Israel's total blockade of Gaza has created catastrophic conditions, leading to critical shortages of food, water, and medicine, placing nearly 290,000 children on the brink of death. Videos have emerged showing the bombing of tents sheltering forcibly displaced Palestinians at Gaza's Al-Rab camp. Hamas released a video of an Israeli hostage. While 11 Palestinians, including 3 infants, were killed in an Israeli strike on Gaza, families of Israeli captives are protesting for their release and against Netanyahu's Gaza war expansion, citing the risks to their relatives' lives. A Palestinian activist featured in a BBC film has reported harassment by Israeli soldiers and settlers, allegedly emboldened by support from US President Donald Trump. Yemen's Houthi rebels launched the hypersonic ballistic missile that struck near Israel's Ben Gurion International Airport. The attack temporarily halted flights and injured at least 4 people near Tel Aviv Airport. Israel has vowed a multi-phased response despite weeks of US airstrikes failing to halt Houthi attacks. Ukraine is set to receive a Patriot air defense system from Israel. Discussions are underway to potentially have Germany or Greece send another Patriot system to further bolster Ukraine's air defenses. The United Nations has been vocal about the ongoing Gaza crisis. When Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese discussed facing pressure to cancel her role and threats of arrest in Germany in light of the situation. The UN has issued warnings of a humanitarian disaster in Gaza due to Israel's blockade and offensive, citing blocked aid deliveries. Japan lodged a protest with Beijing after a Chinese helicopter entered its territorial waters near the Senkaku Islands on May 3rd and violated its airspace for 15 minutes. This incident escalates the ongoing territorial dispute in the East China Sea, with both countries claiming airspace violations. Internal debate persists in Japan regarding its pacifist constitution, highlighted by Constitution Day, rallies featuring both supporters and opponents of revision. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba voiced his aspiration to revise the constitution on its 78th anniversary, although current conditions suggest limited progress on this front. Economically, the average price of 5 kilograms of rice in Japan has more than doubled year over year, reaching over 1,220 in mid-April. Warren Buffett reiterated his commitment to long-term investments in Japanese traders, commending 5 traders at Berkshire's annual shareholders meeting. In trade discussions with the U.S., Japan seeks a review of all tariffs to secure a trade agreement under President Donald Trump's administration. Japanese companies are increasing investments in rejuvenation and anti-aging research, aiming to develop products that promote health and restore youth. Uniquely designed manhole covers in Japan have become recognized as tourism assets, stemming from a public relations initiative designed to enhance the sewage industry's image. Japan ranked lowest among G7 nations in the 2025 World Press Freedom Rankings, attributed to government influence over news organizations. A study also warned that climate change could make outdoor sports unsafe for children in Japan by 2060 due to rising summer temperatures. The study highlighted that over the past 20 years, heat-related deaths among children have reached 100, emphasizing the urgency of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. United Kingdom Home Secretary Kemi Badenoch has proposed encouraging more births to combat the aging population, aiming to decrease dependence on immigration. In counter-terrorism efforts, police arrested 7 Iranian nationals, including 3 in London, suspected of planning an attack on an undisclosed target. These arrests were conducted by British counter-terrorism officers. Meanwhile, some Chinese graduates in the UK are encountering difficulties securing jobs due to a competitive landscape and more stringent visa rules. Former UK diplomat Craig Murray has criticized the West's reaction to the strike on a Gaza aid ship, considering it an illegal act. Turning to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Russian President Vladimir Putin has stated that there has been no necessity to employ nuclear weapons in the war, hoping this situation never arises. He had previously signed a revised nuclear doctrine in November, outlining conditions for the use of Russia's atomic arsenal. Ukraine reports the destruction of a Russian fighter jet using a missile launched from a sea drone, marking a potential first in naval warfare. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed a proposed truce as a theatrical show, maintaining that such a brief pause would not enable significant negotiations for a lasting resolution. Singapore's ruling People's Action Party, PAP, led by Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, achieved a significant win in the general elections. This victory extends the PAP's 6-decade-long governance, strengthening Wong's position. The election outcome was a disappointment for the emerging opposition parties, as the PAP successfully retained its majority. Experts believe that voters supported the PAP due to worries about the economy and global trade instability. Changing voter behaviors also played a role in the opposition's inability to gain ground. The increased vote share for the PAP is regarded as an indicator of economic concerns among Singaporeans. Romania is bracing for a pivotal presidential election, Rerun. This follows the Constitutional Court's annulment of the November election, initially won by Calin Georgescu. The annulment was triggered by allegations of irregularities and suspected Russian interference. The voided election has thrown the European Union, a NATO member, into a significant political crisis. The upcoming vote could potentially elevate ultranationalist George Simeon, a Donald Trump ally, who is critical of both Ukraine aid and the EU. France is actively seeking to attract US-based scientists, potentially impacted by Donald Trump's policies, offering incentives for researchers to relocate to Europe. Meanwhile, French police are investigating a series of kidnappings targeting cryptocurrency investors. These cases include a particularly brutal incident where a victim had a finger amputated for ransom. In a separate but related event, police successfully rescued the father of a wealthy cryptocurrency entrepreneur during a nighttime raid after he was taken hostage for ransom. This marks the second ransom case connected to the cryptocurrency world this year. Separately, France commemorated the 80th anniversary of the Nazi surrender, with World War II survivors sharing their experiences. Iran is facing increased scrutiny as British counterterrorism police apprehended 8 men, 7 of whom are Iranian nationals, across 2 distinct investigations in England. Authorities suspect some of those arrested were planning a terrorist attack on an unspecified location, heightening anxieties about potential Iran-supported schemes. Shifting focus to the United States, Representative Mike Waltz's hardline views on Iran, compounded by the Signal group chat controversy, contributed to his dismissal from the National Security Agency, NSA. Senator Marco Rubio is poised to wield considerable influence over Donald Trump's foreign policy, particularly concerning Iran, Ukraine, and Gaza, aligning closely with Trump's established positions. Pakistan is currently experiencing heightened tensions with India, triggered by a recent attack on tourists in Kashmir. In response to these escalating tensions, Pakistan conducted a successful training launch of the Abdali weapon system, a surface-to-surface missile capable of reaching 450 kilometers. Further exacerbating the situation, Pakistan closed its ports to Indian ships following New Delhi's ban on imports from Islamabad in the wake of the Pahalgam attack. The Defense Minister of Pakistan issued a warning to India regarding any construction on the Indus River that might violate the Indus Waters Treaty. Pakistan intends to formally notify India against holding the treaty in abeyance. Adding to the existing unease, Pakistan also test-fired a ballistic missile. Sudan is currently grappling with a severe humanitarian crisis intensified by ongoing conflict. The Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, recently executed their inaugural drone attack on Port Sudan. Targets included an airbase, a cargo warehouse, and civilian facilities, the Army reports. This attack signifies a worrying escalation as the RSF increasingly employs drones, particularly following territorial losses, notably in Khartoum. Turning to South Sudan, tragedy struck with the bombing of a Doctors Without Borders hospital. This resulted in at least 7 fatalities and left 20 individuals injured, highlighting the precarious security situation in the region. India is actively engaged in several international relationships and facing internal tensions. Prime Minister Modi congratulated Lawrence Wong on his re-election in Singapore, underscoring the robust partnership between the two nations. The UK saw Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy visit India, focusing on strengthening cultural cooperation between the two countries. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh is scheduled to host Japanese Defense Minister Nakatani on May 5 for discussions that will include the situations in the East and South China Seas, alongside ongoing tensions with Pakistan. Despite these tensions, particularly following a shooting that resulted in the deaths of 26 civilians, weddings are continuing in Kashmir. Turning to Singapore, Prime Minister Lawrence Wong secured re-election, prompting congratulations from global leaders, including India's Narendra Modi. The election outcome reflects Singapore's continued focus on economic stability and international partnerships. Wong's administration is expected to maintain a close relationship with India, focusing on trade and investment. In the United Kingdom, Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy's visit to India highlights a renewed emphasis on cultural diplomacy. The discussions centered on collaborative projects in arts, heritage, and media. This initiative aims to deepen understanding and strengthen ties between the UK and India. Meanwhile, Japan is preparing for its Defense Minister Nakatani to visit India on May 5. Discussions with Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh will cover critical security concerns. These include the situations in the East and South China Seas. The meeting also aims to reinforce defense cooperation between Japan and India. Vietnam is celebrating the 50th anniversary of its reunification under the Communist Party, which leverages this historical event to bolster its authority and highlight its contributions to economic development. Simultaneously, Vietnam grapples with economic anxieties stemming from potential U.S. tariffs of 46%, a prospect that deeply worries factory managers and garment industry employees. Italy's historical papal elections have significantly shaped the Catholic Church's traditions, most notably the conclave. The term conclave originated when citizens in Viterbo intervened to expedite a particularly lengthy papal election. The selection of a new pope is now signaled by smoke from a chimney atop the Sistine Chapel at the Vatican. During the recent mourning period for Pope Francis, an AI-generated image of Donald Trump as Pope sparked outrage in both Italy and the United States. The United States reacted negatively to the AI-generated image of Donald Trump as Pope, which circulated during the mourning period for Pope Francis. The image was deemed offensive, reflecting the complex relationship between political figures and religious institutions. Bangladesh has seen the imprisonment of Chinmoy Krishna Das, a former ISKCON leader, since October 2024. He is known for his advocacy for protecting religious minorities. Meanwhile, in the Sundarbans, Mahfuza faces daily perils navigating the mangrove rivers, including threats from tigers, crocodiles, and pirates while working. Yemen's Prime Minister Ahmad bin Mubarak has stepped down, citing impediments to his authority stemming from disputes within the Presidential Leadership Council. Furthermore, factions opposing the Houthi rebels are seeking increased assistance from the United States in their fight. Adding to regional tensions, a Houthi-launched missile from Yemen targeted Israel's Ben Gurion airport, causing a brief disruption to air traffic and triggering air raid alerts. Ukraine is facing continued conflict, with Russia claiming the liberation of the Kursk region, acclaimed Kyiv disputes, causing displacement and feelings of neglect amongst residents. A Russian drone strike in Kharkiv wounded 47, prompting President Zelensky to urge allies for stronger support. In a rare escape, an 18-year-old from Russian-occupied Luhansk successfully fled to Kyiv. Guatemala has seen Arizona's governor intervene to temporarily stop the deportation of Erica, a 24-year-old immigrant. This action followed allegations that her lawyer was denied access to her during childbirth in a Tucson hospital. Meanwhile, Cardinal Alvaro Ramazzini of Guatemala intends to prioritize migration concerns at the upcoming papal conclave. His extensive experience working with migrants, impoverished communities, and indigenous populations in Guatemala positions him to advocate effectively on these issues. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is preparing for a trip to Washington to begin tariff negotiations with President Trump. Carney also intends to address and dismiss any suggestions that Canada might become the 51st state of the United States during his visit. India's Prime Minister, Modi, engaged with Angola's president, pledging strong action against those responsible for the Pahalgam incident. Calls for de-escalation accompanied this commitment. Vatican City witnessed Cardinal Mario Grech from Malta attending a Mass at St. Peter's Basilica. He serves as the Secretary General of an advisory body of bishops. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum revealed that Donald Trump suggested deploying U.S. military forces into Mexico to fight drug cartels, which she rejected. Adding to the nation's challenges, thousands of migrants, largely from Venezuela, are currently stranded in southern Mexico. They are grappling with insufficient resources for onward travel, finding jobs, or going back home, resulting in food shortages and few choices. Czech Republic. President Zelensky of Ukraine visited Prague for 2 days, securing support from the Czech Republic in the context of the Russian invasion. Separately, hikers in the Czech Republic discovered a hoard of gold coins and jewelry estimated to be worth up to $680,000. authorities have launched an investigation to determine the treasure's historical origins and potential ownership. Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar is hopeful for a resolution in the ongoing conflict between Petronas and Petros in Sarawak. The dispute primarily concerns the rights to gas distribution within the region. Reflecting on the nation's political landscape, former two-time Prime Minister Mahathir, nearing the age of 100, has seen many of his past political colleagues and adversaries pass away. Lebanon recently conducted its first municipal elections since 2016, marking a significant event after years without local ballots. These elections took place following a U.S.-brokered ceasefire that ended the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, adding a layer of geopolitical importance to the domestic process. Indonesia is grappling with disruptions to its burgeoning electric vehicle EV sector as foreign investors report interference from local enforcers, impeding the nation's ambition to become a major EV hub. Meanwhile, the agricultural sector is suffering from climate change impacts, with clove farmers specifically affected by inconsistent rainfall, the unpredictable weather shortening the harvest window and diminishing clove yields. Syria is navigating a complex situation, having recently brokered an agreement with the Druze community, while simultaneously facing continued attacks from Israel. The nation's protracted 14-year civil war continues to inflict lasting damage, notably through the detention and separation of children from their mothers by security forces, leaving thousands still unaccounted for. Turning to the United States, the impending increase in tariffs on imported auto parts is projected to drive up car prices, affecting both domestic and foreign vehicle markets. In an attempt to lessen the blow of Trump's tariffs, Thailand is looking to increase imports from the U.S., though analysts suggest this is unlikely to substantially alleviate Thailand's broader economic challenges. In Germany, the Foreign Ministry has defended the intelligence services classification of the AfD party as a confirmed right-wing extremist group. This defense came in response to criticisms from our Senator Marco Rubio, who characterized the designation as tyranny. Venezuela is facing economic headwinds as declining oil prices threaten the nation's financial stability, given its significant dependence on oil revenues. Serbia's president, Aleksandar Vučić, was unexpectedly hospitalized in Florida due to chest pain, cutting short his visit, which was to include a meeting with Donald Trump. Kenya is grappling with a rising debt burden on its workers, exacerbated by increased payroll taxes, as the country seeks to finance government operations and service its foreign debts. In New Zealand, a Hong Kong national has been ordered to leave the country after severely injuring his pet cat during toilet training, which ultimately led to the animal being euthanized. China is witnessing an increasing adoption of its yuan by African traders in lieu of the US dollar for commercial transactions, reflecting growing geopolitical tensions. Morocco is experiencing protests at its ports, fueled by opposition to the country's decision to normalize relations with Israel. Portugal is preparing to deport 18,000 foreigners ahead of the upcoming early general election, scheduled for May 18. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.